All right, chapter 1, lesson 4, this is integers and absolute values. So you've probably heard one day while watching the news, the weather guy say something like, oh, it's below freezing. Now remember that in America we tell temperatures in Fahrenheit. So you may be used to saying like, oh, it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit, like the temperature it was probably today, I think. Okay. However, thinking about it, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But in other countries, we say it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. They tell their temperature in a different way. So when the weather guy says it's below freezing in another country where they measure in Celsius, what do they use? Well, we use these numbers and then we call them negative numbers. Okay, they indicate values that are smaller than or less than 0. So taking a look at this temperature, this little thermometer that I've drawn here, if you were to see something like this in a foreign country, okay, the little red line of mercury is right below 0. That means that we would have to use a negative number to represent that. In fact, I've marked it so that it's at negative 2 degrees Celsius, something very, very common. Okay, now, please keep in mind that the way we say this is negative 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, now not minus 2 degrees Celsius. You may hear some people say that, but the correct way to say it is negative 2 degrees Celsius. If you ever watch Jeopardy, you may notice Alex Trebek likes to say minus so many dollars. Okay, it actually should be negative. Okay, so now you know for Jeopardy. All right, now taking a look at a number line, we can graph these numbers. Okay, as we go along the number line, the value is decreasing as you go to the left of 0, and it's increasing the further you go to the right on the number line. Now, 0 is right in the center. All of your negative numbers are to the left of 0, values that are smaller than 0. All of the positive numbers are to the right. 0 is a special type of placeholder. It is not positive, it is not negative, it's just 0. So let's say we have an example. I give you 3 numbers, 2, negative 2, and negative 3, and I want you to graph them on a number line. Then I want you to order the numbers from least to greatest value. So on a number line, they will look like this. Here's negative 3, 3 units to the left of 0, negative 2, 2 units to the left of 0, because it's negative, and finally 2, which is 2 units to the right of 0, since the positive numbers are to the right. To put these in order, remember it goes from least to greatest value as you read it from left to right. So negative 3, negative 2, and 2 would be what those are. Now let's learn some vocabulary. Okay, so you will need to know these words. Opposites. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on a number line. So for example, 5. 5 is 5 units from 0. It's to the right of 0. Negative 5 is also 5 units from 0. It's just in the other direction. It's to the left of 0. So 5 and negative 5 are opposites because they're the same distance away from 0. Another pair would be something like 32 and negative 32, or 1 and negative 1, 10 and negative 10. I think you're catching my drift. Now, a really important word in 7th grade math will be integers. Integers are all of the whole numbers and their opposites. We can call those integers. Integers cannot have decimals or fractional parts. So here's some examples of some integers. 7 is a whole number, so we can call that an integer. Negative 3 is the opposite of a whole number, 3. So it's an integer. Negative 12 is the opposite of 12, so it's an integer. And 43 is a whole number, so it's also called an integer. Some non-examples will be things like a half, negative 3/4, 0.2, or negative 7.7. All of these have fractional parts, so we can't call them integers. Because remember, integers are only the whole numbers and the opposites of those whole numbers. One last vocabulary word we need to talk about would be absolute value. Absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on a number line. Now, that sounds kind of funny because absolute value, okay, if I said something like the absolute value of 3 is written as this. Okay, the bars look weird, but basically all this means is the absolute value of 3, or what is the distance 3 is from 0. To help it out, sometimes I read it as the first bar means the distance that 3, second bar would be is from 0. It helps me remember it a little bit better. So, since distance is never negative, the absolute value of something is always positive. Here's some examples. If I said, how far away from 0 is -6, that's pretty much what this means. What's the absolute value of -6? Well, it is 6 units away from 0. Okay, that's it. The absolute value of +6, it's the other direction, but it's still 6 units away from 0. -1 is 1 unit away from 0. And 5 is 5 units away from 0. It's just like if you were to go to the store with your parents, okay, and it's 2 miles away. Well, on the return trip, you don't say you went -2 miles. You say you just went 2 miles in the other direction. It's the same concept. All right, this was Chapter 1, Lesson 4, Integers and Absolute Values.